All right, guys. So today we're talking about the end of the Revolutionary War, the end of British colonial rule. But it all begins here with the Battle of Yorktown. This is kind of an exciting one. It's an unexpected one by history. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing that we're going to see is that Washington is locked in a really prolonged engagement in the South. And at that time, what was the South, right? With England's best general, right? This is Lord Cornwallis. So this is a portrait of him. Now, this guy is a bona fide military genius. He is absolutely brilliant. He knows what he's doing. He has been in many battles, led many men. This guy is at the top of his game and really is probably considered to be one of the best generals in history. So Washington is locked in this battle with him. Now, Cornwallis plans to lure Washington into a trap. He's going to try to get him into something that Washington can't handle and that will certainly benefit the English. Here's the plan, right? Basically, he wants to get Washington to follow his army, right? He's going to kind of fake like Washington's getting the upper hand. And the idea is to get Washington to follow the Brits to a place called Yorktown. Now, Yorktown is a fortified city. So if the British can get there, they can spend the winter under the protection of the British Navy. You see, Yorktown is right on the coast. And with the Navy, with all of its naval firepower at their back, the American soldiers would never be able to get close enough, would never be able to really wage war. They would think that they're laying siege to Yorktown. And in essence, they would be, but Cornwallis would be comfortable. His men would be safe. They'd be well provided for because provisions could be brought in by sea. So they would be healthy and they'd be able to come out in the spring ready to fight. Whereas Washington, if he lays siege to Yorktown, is going to be out in the elements, unprotected from the cold, unable to get provisions as easily as Cornwallis. And so the thought is he'll have to suffer through a really brutal winter, much like he had in Valley Forge. Now, this is an image of Valley Forge. We know that Washington had experienced that before. His men starved to death. They died of malnutrition and disease and exposure to the elements. They didn't have the supplies. So this is something that Washington really would like to avoid at all cost. But the idea is that Cornwallis is going to make it so enticing that Washington will follow him to his own doom. Right? Now, the British are going to engage several times, but then they're always going to pull back as though they have been defeated, as though Washington overwhelmed them. And hopefully that Washington would then feel emboldened and give chase. And that's exactly what happens. So Washington is kind of giving chase, engaging the enemy, engaging the British, and then moving forward again, all the way till they get to Yorktown. Now, finally, Cornwallis reaches that fortified city, which is protected, at least he thinks, by the British Navy. Fortunately for Washington, he knows something that Cornwallis doesn't, which was rare because, again, Cornwallis had these great systems of information, all sorts of military knowledge, but knowledge is power, and Washington had some that he didn't. What he knows is that thanks to the Battle of Saratoga, winning us French support, the French Navy has finally arrived. And when it arrives, it wins a major military, or I should say major naval battle against the British. So the ships that are out there behind Yorktown are not British ships. They're French ships that are our allies. And so now Yorktown is really surrounded. Cornwallis is the one that's now trapped. With Washington's troops in front and the French Navy at the back, this is what it looks like. You can follow my cursor here. Here's Yorktown. It's really well protected, but you've got French troops, Rochambeau, over here. You've got American troops under Washington here. And what was supposed to be their protection is really sunk in the harbor, right? In fact, it's the French ships that are back here. Now, there's very little protection right here. And so the French ships are able to constantly bombard with cannon fire all of this entire town of Yorktown. And it is not a good thing for Cornwallis. After an extended bombing campaign from the French ships, from the troops who are in front of him, Cornwallis is really left with no other option than to surrender. And this is a humiliating defeat for him. It's a humiliating defeat for the British, but that's what it is, right? What we're going to see is this is the very last major battle. There are smaller skirmishes, there are a few things here and there, but this is the last major battle of the Revolutionary War, and it leads kind of directly to the Treaty of Paris, 1783, which is where we're finally recognized as the winners of the war, and by extension, the winners of our own liberty, freedom, independence. This is huge, right? This is huge, earth changing kind of stuff. So this battle is really, I guess I would say, a turning point in world history in a lot of ways. When the battle is over, right? Traditionally, what happens is the commanders of each force will meet each other in the middle of the battlefield. There's a ceremony, and the losing commander, kind of in a symbolic gesture, surrenders his sword to the winning general. It's a sign of his command that he's giving over. Well, Cornwallis was too proud. He did not feel like Washington was anywhere near him in terms of military prowess, and so he refused to come out, refused to surrender his sword. Instead, he sends a lieutenant. The lieutenant comes out with his sword and gives it to Washington. And during the ceremony, one of the military bands played a tune called "The World Turned Upside Down," because for the British, it certainly had. This is the world's preeminent power. They are all over the globe, and they had just been defeated by this upstart, set of 13 colonies that never should have happened, right? And so for the British Empire, this changes everything. All of a sudden, I believe that there are people all over the world who are being subjugated to the will of others, looking at this, and it kind of becomes inspiration for fighting their own revolutions. We're going to see in Central and South America, we're going to see in France, all of a sudden, over the next 100 years, there's going to be revolution after revolution after revolution as people see that you can fight back, you can win your independence, that it is possible to overthrow these large European powers who are thousands of miles away, that it can be done. So the world is indeed turned upside down. So anyway, with that, we turn the page. Now we've won our independence. And as important a moment as that is, we have to understand that now the hard work begins. Winning the war was not easy, but it's easy in comparison to leading a country. It's easy in comparison to founding a government that's going to function well for as long as we need it to. So hard work begins now. Guys, thanks for watching. Please go ahead and leave any comments. I'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe. We will talk to you next time. Thanks for watching.